And with that, my colleague and dear friend from Pennsylvania, who has also honorably served our country, Chrissy Houlahan.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. I have the distinction of being able to close us up, and I'm really privileged to be able to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ghost of another war. Being a member of Congress gives certain privileges, and every year I have the opportunity to clean the Vietnam Memorial. In a most recent washing of the Vietnam Memorial, I was privileged to see a small picture of a man in uniform next to a woman with a very 1960s hairstyle and a very small little girl leaned up against the Vietnam Memorial. And it looked a heck of a lot like a picture that is in my home of me and my dad and my mom, because I was born before the Vietnam War, and my father went off to the war, returned when I was a couple of years old. And there, but for the grace of God, I could have been that little girl that was in that picture. My dad could have been taken in that war, but unfortunately he wasn't. And so this is a memory, a vision that I hold in my heart all the time about the blood that we shed on behalf of the American people, on behalf of peace and democracy, and the importance that we hold in our hearts when we send our men and women off to war. Whether or not they're fathers, brothers, sisters, mothers, all of those people will come home is really important. Fast forward, 30 years later, actually now 57 years later, I am now the ranking member on the Armed Services Military Personnel Subcommittee. It is my job to think about those men and women, the many, many, many men and women who were being asked to do the hard thing, to give their lives. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. It's a responsibility, a literal constitutional responsibility of ours to do that. And it's why I'm so privileged to be able to be standing here in front of this group of Democratic congressmen and women, forcefully and morally opposing the Trump administration and their order to defend, in order to defend America and to preserve this, our democracy. A couple of months ago, many who are standing on this stage reminded fellow service members not to follow unlawful orders. You may have remembered that that ended in a death threat to many of us. Today, we are again demanding that President Trump stop using our military for missions that are designed to benefit himself and his wealthy friends. Military force is being used in and against Venezuela without congressional authorization, without transparency, and in ways, as many before me have said, that simply favor the financial interests and powerful oil companies that are major political donors to President Trump, not the interests of Venezuelans, and certainly not the interests of the average American. The American people don't want their sons and daughters sent into harm's way for missions that enrich corporations while doing nothing, as many have mentioned before me, to lower our cost of living, to help us all afford our home or our health insurance, or to secure a future and a livelihood for our children. The American people also do not want to live in a nation with a tarnished reputation that is no longer trusted by our allies, while deploying the very same brutish isolationism and colonial hunger for which we've criticized our enemies in the past. And do not believe for 1 minute that the American people want to live in a country that has turned its back on democracy. That is not what the American people voted for, and I would argue even and especially those who voted for President Trump. No president of any party should take this nation to war alone. Our Constitution demands that accountability, and our service members and citizens deserve nothing less. When we use our forces overseas and we benefit a very narrow set of private interests instead of the will, safety, and economic well-being of Americans, Congress is to blame and at fault if we do nothing. That is why this group of patriotic veterans is doing today what this War Powers Resolution to demand that the removal of the United States forces happen within Venezuela. I am very hopeful that this will end up coming to a vote. I am very hopeful that the Speaker will do the right thing and allow us to vote for it. Every person who is a member of Congress should be on the record on where they stand on this unlawful war. Thank you, and I yield back to Mr. McGovern.